But it says that if you want to use this way, you don't even have to write and apply for a bud like NIMO did in '92. Just go ahead and do it, as long as you're doing it this way. But Part C, the towns that use it aren't held to this, but C says special. Special is the word. Reporting requirements. And it states, the generator of coal ash byproducts must report how much they produced and how much is recycled through the beneficial use program. The DEC interprets special to mean only. That is the only thing they require. I have several letters on the board out there too, or two of them. One to U.S. Congressman Higgins, another to County Executive Edwards. And in those letters they say, we've told Hofner that we are no longer requiring them to do any testing under this regulation. Now, if the EPA looks at New York State's regs, well, this says they are monitoring it. And that's why my push has now gone to both the state and the national level to say, take a very quick and deep look at this. Part D, there are several regulations pertaining to testing. It was talking about case-specific buds, beneficial uses, and talks about testing, stockpile location, the duration, and the containment. And none of it is being enforced by the DEC. One of the recommendations is that when does the ash cease to be a solid waste if it's being beneficially used? Such as, our trucks go into the plant, they bring it out. When they leave that property, what's on that truck is no longer a waste. But in this Part D, they recommend that that ash should not be stockpiled more than 90 days before it's used. Our stockpile hasn't been depleted since I've known it. They're huge. We have a couple of really huge piles. So all of this has to be really carefully looked at. What they say on paper is one thing, and we have to make sure that it's still enforced. In 1999, NIMO sold the Dunkirk and the Huntley plants to the new company called NRG. I don't know what NRG stands for, I can't find it, but it's NRG Corporation. They own both plants, and when they purchased them, all of the buds for the use of their ash waste was transferred to the new owners. Now let's go back to the national scene for just a minute. In 2007, the EPA did publish a map. A copy is on a board out there. And in this map, the EPA identified 67 ash locations that were known to be contaminating groundwater and wells for at least a decade. 67 sites that they knew were contaminating. Of these 67, 24 have a darker dot on the map. And that means that they are contaminating to such a degree that they, let me get this quoted, could threaten human health, unquote. That's all they'll admit to. It could be causing health. Our Dunkirk landfill is one of those 24. In 2008, not too many people saw it in the newspapers or on TV, but on December 22nd, 2008, a coal ash spill in the Kingston, Tennessee power plant poured 1 billion gallons of ash waste over 300 acres, contaminating the Emery River. It is being cleaned up now. However, they're transporting this ash to a small town in near Atlanta, Georgia, I believe it is. And there's all kinds of discrepancy about the levels of health effects. In 2009, on October 4th, what I was trying to show you in this special and with the interview about this, Lisa Jackson, thank you very much, promised that before the end of the year, EPA would release national guidelines to cover the use of hazardous waste, classified as hazardous waste, or the guidelines for treating it as non-hazardous. We're hoping that she does come through with this. Now, what has Crop Plus done? My husband and I bought our property in the 1980s down here. We moved down in 2004, And it was in the spring of 2007. Believe it or not, it was a hot, dry spring. It was wonderful. Except a lot of ash had been put on our roads, a lot. And it became airborne, as Dr. Berkeley was saying. As the cars traveled over it, and this was pulverized coal anyway in the beginning, and it gets crushed more and more. It was on our light bulbs, it was in the air. We couldn't walk on the road. When I called, they did come out and clean up the ditches and clean up the roads a bit. And I asked, you know, what do you do with that cleanup? People want it. They love this stuff. They grow things in it. In July of 2008, I had contacted the EPA a couple of times, and a gentleman called me back and told me about an opportunity that was what I had been questioning him about. And in July, I was part of a peer review of a draft that they had at that time called Human and Ecological Risk Assessment of Coal Combustion Waste. And I explained to them I was very thankful that they were finally looking at the landfills and the dump sites, but that they forgot this huge part about being on our roads. I asked them to come out and, you know, test our ditches and our wetlands and our streams and our wells. And they listened, but nobody has really been down. We've also been building people power. I joined a group called the Western New York Environmental Alliance. Earth Justice, Energy Justice, and SUNY-fredonia has been absolutely wonderful. And of course, the League of Women Voters have given me this opportunity. Channel 7, Patrick Taney, anchor and news reporter, came down twice. On October 1st of 2008 and April 8th, he aired a couple of reports again about our concerns over the coal ash. Been a little tough to get any more coverage than that. January 2009, I requested and paid for Freedom of Information files from the DEC, and we reviewed all 897 pages. A lot of reports were missing. Some had contradicting figures. However, I want to tell you, there was not one single periodic test analysis. The only test analyses are those that were submitted when people first applied for these buds. The ash reported to by NRG that Jack referred to, my town board was kind enough to receive that from NRG, and it was a sample taken in 2007 of ash like the ash being used. Our sample came from the ash pile in Portland. They were very similar. You saw the results. In May, as I said, I had this tested. After there was no test there, I paid personally to have a sample tested by West Streams Technology. They did subcontract the total organic carbon test to another company called Summit, but Jack was kind enough to review these results and give us his analysis, along with Chuck Norris of GeoHydro in Denver, Colorado. He's been extremely helpful on the phone. In September, the League of Women Voters did offer to partnership with us and to be our sponsor for grant applications that require a 501c nonprofit organization to handle the funds. I'm very happy to say we're the recipients of a $4,000 grant, and the money should be coming. The grant was written specifically for testing and for expenses to travel to Washington, D.C. for 2 people and/or Albany in order to try and educate the decision makers there about what's going on.
Let's give a round of applause for that.
Thank you. It's welcome, trust me, because my retirement fund is stretched to the limit here.